They needed me to be a monster, so I was.
He was the most feared man in Russia, a peasant who walked out of the Siberian wilderness and into the Winter Palace, a holy man who could stop a dying boy's bleeding with a telegram, who survived a knife through his abdomen, who drank poison and walked, who absorbed bullets and kept moving. The legend says he was unkillable. The autopsy says otherwise. Grigori Rasputin did not survive poison. He did not claw through river ice with bound hands. He did not cheat death 4 times through supernatural will. He died from 3 bullets, quickly, in the cold, like any man. Every other detail of his legend was manufactured, deliberately, by the men who killed him. The question forensic historians have spent a century trying to answer is not how Rasputin died, it is who gave the order.
I was never a holy man. I was a mirror. I showed powerful people exactly what they needed to see. A peasant mystic, a saint from the soil, a channel to God. None of it was real. All of it worked. And I want you to understand exactly why.
It is the winter of 1916, Petrograd. The Russian Empire is collapsing in real time. 3 million soldiers are dead. Supply lines have failed. The streets outside the Winter Palace smell of bread riots and revolution. Inside the palace, Tsarina Alexandra writes frantic letters to a Siberian peasant, asking him which ministers to appoint and which to destroy. And he answers, every time, with complete authority. This is not mythology. This is documented in 160 surviving letters written in the Tsarina's own hand, recovered from the imperial archives.
Rasputin did not heal Tsarevich Alexei through prayer or mysticism. He healed him by removing the doctors. In 1912, at a hunting retreat in Spala, Poland, the Tsarevich developed a massive internal hematoma. The royal physicians administered aspirin, a newly discovered painkiller, widely prescribed, considered a medical breakthrough. What the doctors did not yet know, aspirin is a blood thinner. They were killing him, slowly, with medicine. Rasputin sent a telegram from Siberia instructing Alexandra to keep the doctors away from the boy. The bleeding stopped within days. Every miracle Rasputin performed in that palace has a clinical explanation. The supernatural was a facade. The leverage it created was entirely real.
The boy's pain was my architecture, not because I manufactured it, because I was the only one who made it stop. When your child is dying and every doctor has failed, you will believe anything. Alexandra believed. That was sufficient. I call it precision.
By 1915, Nicholas II had left Petrograd to take personal command of the Russian army, a catastrophic decision. He tied his own name to every military failure that followed. He left Alexandra in charge of the domestic government. Alexandra left Rasputin in charge of Alexandra. What followed is documented in Russian governmental records as the ministerial leapfrog. Between 1915 and 1917, 4 prime ministers replaced, 5 interior ministers dismissed, 3 war ministers cycling through a revolving door of Rasputin's appointments and destructions. Competent men removed, Rasputin's cronies installed. The machinery of empire systematically dismantled by a semi-literate Siberian peasant with no formal authority and total actual power. Rasputin's apartment at 64 Gorokhovaya Ulitsa was under continuous police surveillance. The surveillance reports, hundreds of pages recovered from the Okhrana archives, document not mysticism, not prayer sessions, not Holy Communion. They document bribery, sexual coercion, the systematic exploitation of desperate women seeking his intervention on behalf of their husbands, their sons, their careers. Deputy Minister Stepan Beletsky documented in official government records that Rasputin routinely raped female petitioners, knowing they had no recourse. These reports reached the Tsar's desk. Nicholas read them, filed them, did nothing. The Romanov dynasty did not fall because of revolution. It fell because it chose, repeatedly and deliberately, to protect one man over the institution itself. In the hours leading to December 29th, 1916, the conspiracy was already in motion. The night of December 29th, 1916, the night of the murder, a British MI6 agent named Oswald Rayner visited Yusupov's Moika Palace. Rayner and Yusupov had been close friends at Oxford University. British intelligence had been monitoring Rasputin for years under the codename Dark Forces. Their concern was specific. Rasputin was aggressively anti-war. He was pushing the Tsar toward a separate peace treaty with Germany. A Russian withdrawal from the Eastern Front would release millions of German troops directly onto the Western Front. British intelligence had a documented operational interest in Rasputin's death. Rayner's visit to the palace on the night of the murder is confirmed in a chauffeur's diary. No official explanation for that visit has ever been provided.
But there was a problem. Rasputin did not begin as a predator. He began as a penitent. Pokrovskoye, Siberia, 1897. A 28-year-old farmer's son experiences what he describes as a vision of the Virgin Mary. He walks away from his wife, his 3 children, his land. He travels to a monastery at Verkhoturye. He renounces meat, alcohol, tobacco. He walks thousands of miles to Jerusalem. This transformation was genuine. The early Rasputin, the Stranik, the wandering pilgrim, was documented by church officials who had no reason to protect him, who were in fact suspicious of him from the beginning. Something real happened to Grigori Rasputin in 1897. The question forensic historians ask is not whether the transformation was real. It is what happened to the man who came back from it. He returned from his pilgrimage to find that his reputation had preceded him, that aristocratic women in St. Petersburg, desperate, disillusioned, starved for authentic spiritual experience, were prepared to give him everything. Power is not a thing that corrupts uniformly. It corrupts specifically. It finds the exact dimensions of a person's weakness and fills them precisely. Rasputin's weakness was not ambition, it was appetite, and St. Petersburg handed him an unlimited supply.
I believed once. The visions were real. The walking was real. The hunger for God was real. But God did not meet me in Petrograd. Power did. I preferred it.
Rasputin was not born a monster. He was manufactured into one by a system that needed him to be something he was not. First a saint, then a scapegoat, and rewarded every step of the transformation with more access, more influence, more protection. The Romanov court created the conditions for Rasputin's predation, shielded him from its consequences, and then, when the damage to the empire became undeniable, decided the cleanest solution was a basement in the Moika Palace and a body in the Malaya Nevka River. The monster was not Rasputin alone. The monster was the system that built him, used him, and then needed his legend to be so grotesque that no one would look past it at the institution that created him.
Here is what actually happened in that basement. There was no poison. The autopsy confirmed it. Zero trace. The doctor, Losovat, either lost his nerve or never loaded the cakes at all. Yusupov shot me once in the chest, the liver. I was not dead. I was not supernatural. I was in shock, and I ran. Purishkevich fired twice more as I crossed the courtyard. One bullet found my back, and then someone knelt over me in the snow. Close range, center of the forehead. That shot did not come from a Russian revolver. I noted the difference. It was the last thing I noted.
Professor Dmitry Kosarotov performed the autopsy on January 2nd, 1917. His findings were precise, clinical, and immediately classified. 3 gunshot wounds: chest, back, forehead. No water in the lungs. Rasputin was dead before his body entered the river. No poison in the stomach. Genitalia intact, contradicting decades of folklore and museum hoaxes. The fatal wound, the contact shot to the center of the forehead, was forensically analyzed in the early 2000s by former Scotland Yard commander Richard Cullen. His conclusion: the wound ballistics are inconsistent with any weapon carried by the Russian conspirators that night. The trajectory, the entry wound diameter, the absence of bullet jacket material, all consistent with an unjacketed round fired from a .455 Webley revolver.
The standard issue sidearm of a British officer. 8 days after the murder, British intelligence agent Stephen Alley wrote a letter to a colleague. It was recovered from declassified MI6 files decades later. It reads, in part, "Our objective has clearly been achieved. Reyna is attending to loose ends." Rasputin was not killed by Russian aristocrats trying to save the Romanov dynasty. He was executed by British intelligence trying to keep Russia in a war it was losing the will to fight. The aristocrats were in the room. They provided the basement, the poison that wasn't poison, and the cover story. Someone else provided the kill shot. Rasputin did not die a mystic. He did not die a saint or a demon or a monster. He died as what he had always been, a useful instrument, eliminated the moment his usefulness ended. The legend that followed, the poison, the ice, the undying monk, was not mythology that accumulated organically over time. It was engineered, deliberately, by the men who needed the world looking at the monster and not at them.
Here is the question that a century of historical investigation has not been able to answer. Rasputin spent his final months pushing the Tsar toward a separate peace with Germany. British intelligence killed him to prevent that peace. 10 weeks later, the Tsar abdicated anyway. The peace came anyway. Russia left the war anyway, which means the assassination achieved nothing strategically, unless the goal was never to keep Russia in the war, unless the goal was to remove the one man who had enough influence over the Tsarina to potentially stabilize the Romanov dynasty and allow the February Revolution to proceed without interference. Was Rasputin killed to protect the Allied war effort, or was he killed to ensure that the last obstacle to Russian regime change was removed from the board? The files that would answer that question remain classified. Some secrets are meant to be buried. Others are meant to be told. This is Dead Confession. See you in the next confession.